So guys, it's been a whole year since the last episode of Standoff, but better late than never I guess, because here we are today for Kira Yoshikage versus Kira Yoshikage, and their stands Killer Queen. But before we start today's episode, I want to explain the absence of Standoff for the past year on the channel, and the beginning of something new. So for any new subscribers, Standoff was a series we used to do where we would match up two characters in JoJo with similar stands and compare them to see which stand was overall superior. The videos were a ton of fun and a huge contribution to the growth of the channel, but after 22 episodes discussing over 40 stands, I kinda just ran out of matchups to do between stands with similar abilities. But today's episode of Kira vs. Kira will be the beginning of a new series similar to Standoff, where we'll compare an original universe character in JoJo to their alternate universe equivalent from the Steel Ball Run universe, looking at their similarities, differences, and in typical Standoff fashion, their stands. So I'll still group these videos together with Standoff and they'll be in the same playlist, but I guess I would consider this more of a Standoff sub-series dubbed Original vs. Alternate or something like that. But without further ado, let's start off this new series with a bang, quite literally, with Kira Yoshikage versus Kira Yoshikage from Part 8 JoJoLands.
Babe, I will take you anywhere. Babe, tell me I'm the only one.
We'll first be looking at Kira from the original universe, and the main villain from the fourth part of JoJo's bizarre adventure, Diamond is Unbreakable. Kira is first introduced as the quiet serial killer lurking among the innocent within the small city of Morio, whose actions reflect the worst of humanity. His character is easily identifiable as evil, but a much different evil than we had seen before from the series. Kira exudes an elegant and peaceful nature while at the same time performing the most reprehensible of actions. And seeing these two sides of him contrasting so seamlessly creates a sense of danger and a feeling more unsettling than any egotistical power-hungry villain ever could. And by Kira subverting the expectations of what we expect a villain within JoJo to be, along with his subtle nuance, results in a truly terrifying antagonist. What makes a character, and especially a villain, great is what makes them believable, and what makes Kira believable is his grounding to reality. Albeit he does have a manifestation of his inner spirit that allows him to blow shit up. But even without his stand Killer Queen, a person like Kira very well could and do exist in the world we live in, and throughout part 4, the more we see behind the curtain into Kira's life, the more real he becomes. We see things like his fetish for women's hands, why he has that fetish, how he spends his mornings, his likes, his dislikes, his internal conflicts of emotions and lack of emotions. All these things we learn about Kira make him a character you love and hate all at the same time. So that's what makes Kira a great character, but as for his past and personality, born in 1966 in Morio, Japan, Kira lived a fairly mundane early life. Although it was stated that he didn't have the best of childhoods, which was most likely due to his parents already being pretty old by the time he was born and both passing away by the time he was 21. After Kira had finished high school, he would go on to university to receive a degree in literature and land himself an ordinary office job working for a corporate department store. But all of this just sounds like a way too ordinary life for a sociopathic serial killer. But this is Kira's preferred way to live. We all know Kira was the man who just wanted to live a quiet life, while of course committing murder. He lived by the philosophy of why be number one when you can be number two, keeping his name out of the spotlight and living as simply as possible, allowing him to hide in plain sight. This way of life was first seen from the character Whole Horse in Stardust Crusaders. And the creator of JoJo, Hirohiko Araki, liked this character and his personality so much he decided to carry some of his philosophies over to Kira Yoshikage. So there's nothing wrong with wanting to live a quiet life and stay out of the limelight, but there is something wrong with Kira. He has an uncontrollable darkness within him that pushes him to murder the innocent, all for his fetish of women's hands. As Kira doesn't murder just anyone, he will only murder women when his last victim's hand begins to rot and his urge to kill will return, represented by his growing fingernails. But of course, besides women, Kira will kill anyone who stands in the way of him and his quiet life. So by by no means does Kira's past justify his actions, but seeing deeper into the person he is helps us understand why he does the things he does. And I'm sure Kira having a stand ability that allows him to completely destroy any evidence of his murders also makes his urges that much harder to resist. And speaking of Kira's stand, he of course possesses Killer Queen, with the ability to turn any object or person Kira comes in contact with into a bomb, and on command can trigger his targets to explode without any trace of the explosion ever happening. This ability is considered Killer Queen's primary bomb, but the stand also has a secondary ability being Sheer Heart Attack, an automatic long-range type sub-stand that allows Kira to hunt down his victims from a distance. Sheer Heart Attack operates by sensing temperature and will attack the hottest object around it, which is usually people, as the average person has an internal body temperature of 98 degrees Fahrenheit. And once Sheer Heart Attack has reached its target, it will cause an explosion identical to Killer Queen's primary bomb. And let's not forget to mention that Sheer Heart Attack is nearly indestructible and has only been seen stopped by stands with immobilizing abilities. So with Killer Queen's first and second bomb, its power is pretty insane, and that's not even mentioning the stand's third bomb, Bites the Dust. But we'll be leaving out Bites the Dust for today's matchup because it wasn't one of Killer Queen's original abilities and had obtained its third bomb after Kira was pierced by the stand arrow for a second time. And also Kira's Killer Queen from part 8 had never gained Bites the Dust. So lastly, before we move on to Kira from part 8, I want to briefly mention some of Kira's major influences. Kira's design is largely inspired by David Bowie, specifically Bowie's thin white Duke face, having pale white skin, slick back blonde hair, and wearing a button-down shirt. And even more than design, Kira seems to share personality traits with the thin white Duke, as the Duke was by far Bowie's darkest character, who often expressed sociopathic tendencies. Bowie had described the Duke as a would-be romantic with absolutely no emotion at all, and many years later would refer to the Duke phase as the darkest time in his life. And as for Killer Queen and Sheer Heart Attack, they are of course in reference to the Queen songs of the same name, with their abilities being inspired by the song's lyrics and aggressive sound. And that's about everything we'll need to know about Kira and Killer Queen before looking at their alternate universe counterparts. So now, on to Kira Yoshikage from part 8. Brief spoiler warning for those who haven't started reading JoJolian yet, I won't be mentioning any major events from part 8, we'll only be looking at Kira's characters specifically. But I will be showing visuals containing other characters and stand fights from the part. So the first we see of Kira in JoJolian is an outside perspective looking into his personal life, where the main characters Josuke and Yasuo find their way into Kira's apartment. And from what we see around his home can lead us to believe that this is in fact the same Kira from part 4. We see multiple sets of the same outfit, a painting of the Mona Lisa next to sculptures of severed hands, jars of fingernails labeled with dates, and the most convincing evidence to make us think that this Kira is also a killer is the young woman trapped inside his bathroom crying out for help. But Araki ends up pulling a bait and switch on us, as we find out later that Kira hadn't been to his home in a long time, and it was another stand user who was using Kira's home to torture the woman found in his bathroom. So it turns out that Kira is in fact not a serial killer, but shares a lot of the same character quirks with the original Kira, like both of them being fond of the Mona Lisa and having fetishes for hands. But in part 8 Kira's case, he creates molds of his own hands and doesn't kill people and take theirs. So from part 8 Kira's introduction, we know he has similar habits to his original universe counterpart, but it's not until we actually see through Kira's perspective that we learn his personality is completely different. Kira exudes a very yada yada, I don't give a shit attitude, and that's expected because Kira is also the alternate universe equivalent to Jotaro, being the son of Holly Joestar and grandson of Joseph. Alternate universe Holly Joestar had 2 children, her daughter Kyo and son Kira, and both of these characters carried over characteristics from the original universe Jotaro. Kyo takes on a lot of design inspiration from Jotaro, when Kira carries a lot of Jotaro's personality. It also seems that they both share a love for the sea, as Jotaro grew up to become a marine biologist and Kira became a marine surgeon. But back to Kira's similarities with Kira, and now that we understand his personality, we can look at his stand, which is also Killer Queen. Alternate universe Killer Queen appears nearly identical to the original, but its ability has slightly changed. Killer Queen's primary bomb ability is now replaced with cute little bubbles that the stand can summon and will explode upon impact with any object. It also still has Sheer Heart Attack, but a highly controlled version compared to the original. Part 8 Kira can summon multiple Sheer Heart Attacks at their normal size or smaller, and this paired with its control ability makes it an extremely good stand for utility. For example, Kira can now send a very small Sheer Heart Attack into somebody's body and cause a controlled explosion to remove a blood clot. And the last difference from the original Killer Queen is that Part 8 Kira's explosions will affect the environments around them, and they aren't restricted to a single single target. So it may seem that the two Killer Queen's abilities are different just for the sake of being different, but their differences are a result of their users' personalities. Kira from Part 4's Killer Queen allows him to live the murderous quiet life he desires, when Part 8 Kira's Killer Queen allows him to use his stand for good. And he has no desire to hide, so his explosions are tangible unlike the original and cause a violent disturbance, expressing more of the Jotaro side of his personality than the Kira side. So Kira Yoshikage and Kira Yoshikage, two versions of each other living in different universes and in many ways similar, but at the same time two very different men. One evil and one just. Alternate universe Kira is one of my favorite recreated characters from the Steel Ball Run universe because we got to see what it would be like if instead of Kira being an evil main villain, he was a Joestar, having all the bizarre characteristics from the original Kira but with the blood of a Joestar and a version of Killer Queen to reflect the justice within his bloodline. So to conclude this episode, let's of course talk about Killer Queen versus Killer Queen. It's hard to definitively say which version of Killer Queen is better because their abilities are for two different uses. The original specializes in extremely stealth, quick and clean kills from close range, and with its sheer heart attack it also has long range capabilities, but both of its bombs are really only good for killing people. Versus alternate Killer Queen, which is more large-scale destruction with its new primary bomb being a more uncontrollable barrage of bubble bombs that will explode upon impact on anyone or anything and will affect the environment and definitely are not silent. But with its sheer heart attack it has utility uses, but it seems the stand is only good from close range. So I think I'll have to give this one to alternate universe Killer Queen, mostly because it can fully control its sheer heart attack and have more than one with way more possible uses than the original Killer Queen. But of course there will be a card in the top right where you all can vote on which Killer Queen you think is the overall more powerful stand. And that's gonna be Kira versus Kira. I hope you guys enjoyed this new take on the Standoff series, original versus alternate, focusing a bit more on the characters, their similarities, their differences, and how they were recreated in the alternate universe. So like the video if you enjoyed. I had a ton of fun making this one because who doesn't love Kira Yoshikage, and it's been so long since I actually dove into Kira Yoshikage from Part 8, and I just had like an epiphany of realizing how much fan service this guy is. I mean, we recreated Kira from the original universe, and what we got was Kira Yoshikage as a Joestar, and it was like a fusion of Kira and Jotaro. He's just such a great character, and if you haven't read JoJoLands yet, I kept this video extremely spoiler free, so get reading, man. Kira from Part 8 is so amazing, and JoJoLands is a ton of fun. Also, the thumbnail art for this video and the art that's on your screen right now was another commission by Dorito Meatbag on Twitter, so huge shout out, links down below in the description where you guys can follow them. They're an amazing artist, and they've been doing so much great art for the channel lately. So with that said, thank you guys so much for watching. I really hope you enjoyed this one, and be sure to let me know in the comments what characters you would like to see next on original versus alternate. I think we're gonna have a ton of fun with this new series, but for now, enjoy the rest of your day, guys, and peace.